The story begins when the hero's team, Silverwing, is battling an enormous dragon. The dragon lashes out with its tail, sending them flying away. Then it attacks with a powerful icy breath, and the team tries to block the attack using their magical barriers, but the breath shatters the barriers and injures one of the female members. At that moment, Dennis, the team's cook, uses his magic to create a healing potion that treats the girl's wounds. Meanwhile, the team leader Vigo uses his magic and lands a powerful strike directly on the dragon's eye, causing it to become enraged and begin attacking them with lightning. However, the vice leader, Katie, delivers a sword strike that brings it down. Vigo then encourages everyone and tells them not to lose heart because they are the strongest team in the world. After that, we see the Silverwing team in an emergency meeting, where we learn that they failed to defeat the dragon. Vigo blames Dennis for what happened. He claims that if Dennis had not used his terrifying voice skill, the dragon would never have escaped. But Dennis reminds him that Vigo was the one who originally ordered him to use that skill. Dennis explains that their objective was to kill the dragon, but when it lost control and went berserk, Vigo himself asked him to use the skill because the team was no longer able to handle the situation. However, Vigo completely denies ever giving such an order and accuses Dennis of being a spy sent by a rival team to destroy their reputation. He then expels him from the team and tells him that he never deserved to be a member of their group because he is nothing more than a cook. Those words make Dennis furious, and he prepares to fight. Vigo unleashes his power and says that even if both of them are level 99, a cook like Dennis could never defeat him. In the end, Dennis calms himself down and decides to leave without causing trouble. He tells Vigo to do whatever he wants because the matter no longer concerns him. As Dennis walks through the royal capital, he encounters a little girl whose balloon slips away and floats into the sky. Dennis quickly jumps up, catches the balloon, and returns it to her. Seeing her happiness reminds him that he should not give up the important things in his life so easily. Because of that, he decides to leave the capital and start a new life. But Katie tries to stop him because she sees him as an extremely important member of the team. Dennis reassures her and tells her that they will surely find someone to replace him. Katie tells him that ever since he joined the team, they have been able to explore much deeper parts of labyrinths than before, and that is the reason people consider them the strongest team in the world. She firmly believes that the real reason behind the team's success is the support he provides from the rear lines, but the other members do not even understand the true extent of what he has been doing for them. Katie begins losing her composure because she knows the team will not survive without him. She tries every possible way to convince him to stay, but Dennis has already made up his mind. In the end, she asks him to at least cook dinner for them before leaving and asks what he plans to do afterward. He answers that he intends to open his own restaurant. Dennis remembers the wonderful days they spent together, and he also recalls that Vigo was always jealous of him because he had feelings for Katie. Katie reminds him that she was the one who originally invited him to join the team long ago. Even so, Dennis continues on his path. Katie attempts to order him to stop in her capacity as vice leader, but he simply asks her to take care of herself before walking away. Afterward, he arrives in a new city where he becomes fascinated by a magical device called the Icebox and intends to buy it. However, he remembers that the guide explaining how to open a successful restaurant stated that it is best to minimize startup expenses as much as possible, so he decides not to purchase it. He follows all the advice written in the book, and after buying all the equipment he needs, only one thing remains: hiring someone to serve customers. That is when he notices a girl named Italia being sold by a slave trader. The trader explains that she is the daughter of a noble family that has fallen from grace. Dennis wishes he could help her, but he tells himself that he cannot save everyone, so he initially intends to walk away. However, when he looks into her eyes, he is reminded of something from his past, so he decides to enter the auction and buy her. But a merchant named Polvo offers a higher bid, and the people around them say that the man is a pervert. A fierce bidding war begins between them. In the end, Dennis wins the auction and purchases Italia, but doing so consumes nearly all the money he has left. Afterward, he takes her to a shop so she can clean herself up. While they are walking through the city, he tells her to stay close to him, but she becomes lost in the crowd. Italia is terrified of the people around her, but Dennis manages to find her and apologizes because he had been walking too quickly. She asks him why he bought her, and he tells her that she reminded him of something from his past. He then tells her that she is free and not obligated to stay with him. The decision is entirely hers whether she wants to remain with him or leave. Suddenly, he hears her stomach growling from hunger, so he goes inside and prepares a meal for her. The moment she tastes it, she is shocked by how delicious it is. Then she begins to cry. Dennis remembers the hardships she must have gone through, but he decides not to ask her anything until she is ready to tell her story herself. He thinks to himself that even someone who has lost all hope in life still needs food in order to survive. He asks whether she likes the meal, but notices that she nearly chokes because she is eating so quickly. The next day, the two of them work together to prepare the restaurant. Dennis tells Italia that she will be the face of the establishment and the first person customers see when they enter. He is extremely excited for his first customer, but they are surprised when a girl named Henrietta enters, while fully equipped with her gear and weapon. Dennis remembers a piece of advice from the book that says some customers do not like being bothered, so they should be made to feel comfortable and welcomed without being disturbed. He asks Italia to bring her a glass of water while she decides what she wants to order. However, Henrietta is nervous because Dennis is standing close to her while she is choosing. Eventually, she orders an extremely small meal, which makes Dennis realize that she is practically broke, so he decides to prepare a proper meal for her free of charge. Henrietta tells him that she was expelled from her adventurer team simply because she is a girl, and that deeply frustrates her because gender has nothing to do with skill or strength. She also points out that even the vice leader of the Silver Wing team is a girl, making such reasoning completely meaningless. She further reveals that she is hiding her true identity, but whenever a team hears her voice, they refuse to recruit her, which is why she has no money. A little later, Dennis serves her food, and the moment she takes a bite, she is stunned by how incredible it tastes. Within moments, she completely finishes the entire plate. Dennis tells her to become a regular customer, and she promises to return after joining a new team and earning enough money. He also offers to ask his customers whether they know of any team looking for a girl to join them, but says that contacting her will be difficult, so he asks her to stop by the restaurant from time to time. After that, customers begin pouring into the restaurant one after another, and every single one of them is amazed by the taste of the food. While working, Dennis overhears a group of people talking about entering a new labyrinth. He asks whether they would be willing to recruit a female sword fighter into their team, and they reply that they have absolutely no problem with that. At the end of the day, Dennis informs Henrietta about the team. She is thrilled by the idea and excited to join them. However, Dennis tells her that she needs to be careful when choosing the team she works with. Henrietta responds that if she keeps worrying and overthinking, she will never accomplish anything. While eating, she promises that she will repay him for the meal later, but he tells her not to talk with food in her mouth. That night, Dennis overhears two customers discussing a team that recruits female adventurers. The truth, however, is that they take them into labyrinths to exploit and assault them. Hearing this makes Dennis extremely worried about Henrietta. The following day, Henrietta meets the new team and asks what they will be doing that day. They tell her that they will explain everything once they arrive at the labyrinth. She tries to learn what mission they are working on, but ultimately decides to go with them without asking too many questions so she does not embarrass anyone or ruin the atmosphere. Inside the labyrinth, the team members constantly praise her because she defeats monsters with remarkable ease. This makes her incredibly happy because it is the first time she has ever felt that a team genuinely relies on her. She reflects on how people have treated her strangely her entire life simply because she is a girl, but she starts to believe that things will be different with this team because they seem to trust her. As they continue progressing deeper, she keeps defeating every monster they encounter, but after a while, she becomes completely exhausted and collapses to her knees from fatigue. She asks how much farther they have to go because they told her the mission was simply to gather a few items. They reassure her and say that the destination is very close. When they finally arrive at the memory crystals, she is utterly exhausted and falls to the ground. At that moment, the team leader orders one of the members to cast a healing spell on her. The member approaches her, but instead of healing her, he casts a paralysis spell that leaves her body unable to move. Henrietta tries to grab her sword, but the leader stops her and tells her she is stupid for believing every word they said. Then they tell her that they are going to leave her inside the labyrinth after she entertains them for an hour. After that, they begin removing her armor, but suddenly, one of them is blasted away with tremendous force. The reason is Dennis, who appears out of nowhere and saves her. However, they cannot recognize him because his face is covered, so they assume he is one of the labyrinth's monsters. One of them attempts to use detection magic to discover his weakness, but the spell fails because Dennis's level is far higher than theirs. Then Dennis strikes another member, sending him flying straight into a wall. At that point, everyone panics and tries to flee, but Dennis attacks them with his knife at incredible speed. As for Henrietta, she notices that the way he moves resembles the movements of an extremely skilled professional chef. The following day, Henrietta tells Dennis everything that happened to her and says that she lost consciousness in the end and never got the chance to thank the person who saved her. Meanwhile, the team members are found tied up in front of the labyrinth entrance. After the Adventurers Guild investigates them, it is revealed that they were actually a criminal gang disguised as an adventurer team. Henrietta tells Dennis that he was right when he warned her to be careful, but Dennis begins blaming himself because he failed to properly investigate the team before recommending them to her. She responds by telling him that none of it was his fault. Suddenly, her stomach growled from intense hunger, and she felt deeply embarrassed because she had no money, but Dennis told her to eat anything she wanted. At first, she ordered the most expensive meal in the restaurant. Then she became embarrassed, apologized, and asked him to give her the cheapest thing instead. But Dennis told her that once a customer orders something, they have to eat it. Then he also asked Italia to have dinner with them. At the same time, 2 customers entered the restaurant, but Dennis told them to get the water themselves because Italia was busy. While Italia and Henrietta were enjoying the food, the 2 customers asked Dennis why the restaurant had been closed yesterday. He answered that he had been busy with something important. Those words suddenly made Henrietta realize that Dennis was the person who had saved her in the labyrinth. The next day, Henrietta asked Dennis whether it would be better for her to hide the fact that she was a girl if she intended to continue living as an adventurer, but Dennis simply told her to do whatever she wanted. Suddenly, she ran toward the back room, took off her armor, and put on ordinary clothes because she realized she had been far too concerned with what people thought of her. Then she returned and told Dennis that his words had affected her deeply and made her think differently. But Dennis replied that the effect of his words was obvious, since she had been eating all her meals at the restaurant for free for a while. Then he asked her if she was still looking for a new team, and she answered that things were not going well. So he told her she needed to find work quickly so she could pay off the bill she owed. At that moment, she was shocked to discover that he had accurately recorded every meal she had eaten at his restaurant. After that, a boy named Finn entered the restaurant, but he was extremely confused and unable to decide what he wanted to order. Dennis and the others tried to help him and suggested different dishes, but he rejected every suggestion, which annoyed Dennis a little. In the end, Italia told him to try the fried rice, so he agreed to her suggestion. And the moment he took a bite, he was surprised by how wonderful it tasted. Afterward, Dennis asked him what was bothering him, because he felt that Finn needed someone to listen to him. Finn explained that the problem was that the levels of the people around him were far too low compared to his. And he was frustrated because everyone around him only thought about completing missions and earning rewards, while no one had any real desire to develop the team or become stronger. So Dennis looked at Henrietta and told her to learn from Finn because even now she still was not earning any money. Finn said that he could not allow people with no ambition to become adventurers, because a true adventurer must explore unknown lands and regions. Dennis agreed with him. Finn then explained that when he said the same thing to the members of his former team, they kicked him out, but he saw that as no problem because he never wanted to be part of a team that had no great goals or high ambitions in the first place. Then he revealed that he intended to join the Silverwing team and become its greatest mage. Dennis advised him and told him to be careful not to end up alone, because having a good team is extremely important for any adventurer. Finn replied that once he found people who could keep up with his level, he would join them. Then he paid for the food and told Dennis that the meal was excellent. The next day, Finn returned to the restaurant happily and told Dennis that he had joined the strongest team in the region, known as the Night Mist Brigade. Dennis asked him whether the levels of the team members were suitable for his own level, but Finn said that did not matter because he possessed many advanced skills and all he needed was to apply them in practice. Then he began daydreaming and wondering whether he would receive an incredible title once he joined Silverwing in the future. Dennis thought to himself that Finn was a little arrogant, but his desire to improve was not a bad thing. He believed that if Finn trained properly within a good team, he would become a very powerful adventurer in the future. After that, Finn said that he had a mission on the 5th floor of the labyrinth. Dennis used search magic to check his stats and discovered that his level was only 17. That was an extremely low level for the 5th floor, so he asked him if that place was not far too dangerous for him. But Finn reassured him and said that the elite members of the team would support and protect him. Dennis thought that Finn had probably only read about advanced skills, but did not actually know how to use them, because a person's level is determined by the quantity and quality of the skills they possess. And if he had truly mastered those advanced skills, his level would have been far higher than 17. For that reason, Dennis kept trying to warn him against going to the 5th floor. But Finn replied that Dennis knew nothing about the world of adventurers in the first place, because he had never entered a labyrinth himself. After that, Dennis and Italia went out to buy supplies for the restaurant, and even though he was busy, he remained worried about Finn. but he told himself that Finn had to learn to take responsibility for his own decisions. Suddenly, he heard two people talking and saying that they had left Finn alone on the 5th floor to see whether he would be able to return alive or not. The moment Dennis heard that, he grabbed them and beat them relentlessly. At the same time, Finn was running away from a group of monsters, but his foot got caught in a climbing plant. He tried to use a magic spell to free himself, but his mind suddenly went blank and he could not remember a single spell. He began to panic and wonder why he could not remember anything. Then he started imagining the terrible fate that could await him if the monsters reached him. He fell into a complete state of terror, but suddenly, a girl named Cynthia used her magic and saved him. Finn thanked her for helping him, but she told him not to feel too relieved because they still needed to find a way to escape. He asked her if she had gotten lost in the labyrinth by accident, but she told him that her team had also left her behind. She added that she always caused problems for people because she was not good at anything. That was why she believed she deserved to be abandoned. But then she became embarrassed because she knew Finn had nothing to do with that problem. Then she said they could wait until his team came to rescue him. But Finn told her that his situation was exactly like hers and that no one was coming to look for him. He believed the reason was his bad personality and arrogant behavior. Cynthia tried to reassure him and told him that was not true, but Finn replied that she did not know anything about him. Then he admitted that this was the first time he had opened his heart and spoken honestly with a stranger, and that made him feel a little relieved. After that, he told her he had a plan. The plan was for him to distract the monsters himself so she could escape. Cynthia was shocked and told him he might die, but Finn said he had lived his entire life selfishly, and he at least wanted to make sure she survived because she had saved his life. And indeed, he stepped out and faced the group of goblins head on. He tried to use a magic spell to stop them, but the monsters broke through the magic with terrifying ease. They were about to reach him. At the restaurant, Dennis was shocked when he saw Italia walking around without any clothes, and she told him the reason was that there were no towels. He quickly brought her a towel, and at the same time, Finn arrived with the others, but he became extremely embarrassed by the sight he had seen. Dennis told him that it was not something he should worry about, then asked Italia to put on her clothes, but she said she had to dry her body with the towel first. After that, he noticed Rachel was with them, and when they told him everything that had happened, he said that the more serious and devoted a person is, the more work and responsibilities they take upon themselves. He believed the best thing for her now was to rest for a while, but Finn said that would be difficult because she worked for the Night Mist Brigade. Dennis replied that he would speak to them himself. A little later, the leader of the Night Mist Brigade, a man named Hooper, arrived at the restaurant and apologized because Dennis had been forced to take care of Rachel. Dennis used search magic and saw that Hooper's level was 51, which impressed him because it was far higher than the average ordinary adventurer. Hooper said that Rachel was currently resting and that she would temporarily leave the brigade to recover, but then Hooper showed him the contract they had signed with her. Dennis was shocked and could not believe she had agreed to sign such a horrible contract, and he described them as a group of swindlers because they intended to drain everything they possibly could from her. At the same time, Rachel was convinced that death was better for her. But Italia told her that she too had once thought about ending her life, except Dennis had saved her and pulled her out of the darkness she had been trapped in. She told her to eat a delicious meal first, and if she still remained determined after that, then Italia would respect her choice. Hooper asked Dennis one last time to hand Rachel over to him, but Dennis wondered why Hooper imagined himself to be such an important person. So Hooper explained that in every dungeon city, the strongest brigade is the one that holds true influence, and he said the Silver Wing Brigade was the best example of that. Then he threatened to burn down the restaurant if Dennis did not follow his orders. But suddenly, Katie appeared, so Dennis told her he was busy with something important right now. Katie became extremely annoyed by his words because she had traveled a long distance specifically to meet him, while Hooper immediately recognized her as the vice leader of the Silver Wing Brigade. Dennis asked her to wait a little until he finished dealing with this problem, and he tried to negotiate with Hooper, but everyone was suddenly distracted when Katie went over and hugged Finn, thinking he was a girl. But Dennis clarified that he was actually a boy, and Finn was surprised and asked her what kind of relationship she had with Dennis. At that moment, she revealed that she had been a former member of the Silver Wing Brigade with him, and said they had practically been partners, which shocked everyone present. As for Hooper, he instantly understood that he could not afford to make Dennis his enemy, so he burned the contract and allowed Rachel to leave the brigade. Katie was furious because he had tried to bother Dennis, so she asked him if he wanted her to destroy his entire life in the kingdom, but Dennis asked her to stop stop acting so arrogantly. After that, he asked her what she wanted to eat, and at that moment, Italia came out with Rachel and asked him to serve her food as well. The two of them ordered the same dish, and Rachel said it tasted absolutely amazing, while Italia was happy to see her enjoying the food. Katie tried to convince Dennis to return to the Silver Wing Brigade, telling him that ever since he left them, the brigade had been on the verge of collapse. She explained that he had been the central pillar of their rear support strength, and because of that, everyone who had depended on him had turned against Vigo. But Dennis refused to return and said he was enjoying his current life. He added that most of his regular customers were a little crazy, but he would rather spend time with them than return to a brigade filled with pressure and tension. After that, Katie returned to the royal capital, where she met Vigo, who asked her why she had gone to see Dennis. She told him that she had missed his food. She tried to convince him to bring Dennis back to the brigade, but he completely refused and told her to stay away from him. At that time, the restaurant had become full of customers, and Rachel began helping Dennis with the work because she had started living there. Finn asked her to rest for a while, but she said she did not know how to sit still without working, and added that Italia was helping her too. Dennis served the customers' orders, and Henrietta said she was not surprised the restaurant had gained more regular customers, but Dennis reminded her again that she was living at his expense, which made everyone surprised that she still had not paid off her debts. She replied that she could not find a suitable job. Finn wondered whether Dennis could handle such a huge number of orders, and he also noticed that Italia seemed happier than before, which made Rachel wonder if something good had happened to her. Suddenly, Dennis dropped the pot he was holding, then told Finn to come meet him on his day off because he needed his opinion on an important matter. Henrietta offered to help as well, but he told her the matter was bigger than she could handle, leaving her confused about what kind of advice he needed. That night, while Henrietta was taking a shower, she kept thinking about Dennis's words and became convinced that he intended to ask Finn for advice in order to find a way to kick her out of the restaurant. At the same time, Dennis told Finn that he suspected Italia had a boyfriend. At that moment, Finn finally understood what Dennis needed to consult him about. Dennis said that ever since he had started giving her personal allowance, she had begun going out for walks a lot, and when he watched her himself, he saw her with a boy. Finn said they might just be friends, and that if he was that worried, he should ask her directly, but Dennis admitted that he did not have the courage to do that. Then he suddenly became angry and said that if she really did have a boyfriend, the boy should have come to meet him first with a box of sweets, and that he would not approve of anyone below level 80 anyway. At that moment, Italia arrived and asked them what they were talking about, leaving Dennis extremely surprised. Finn saved the situation and said they were talking about cooking, so Italia said that she also wanted to learn how to cook. So Dennis began teaching both of them, but Finn noticed that Dennis was focusing on Italia far more than on him, while Dennis remembered the days when he himself had been learning how to cook. When they finished the dish, Dennis was extremely impressed by the level Italia had reached, but he barely even looked at the dish Finn had made. After that, Italia suddenly left the restaurant. At the same time, Rachel had woken up, so Dennis gave her a shopping list and went out with Finn after Italia. But Rachel said she was not confident she could buy the items by herself. At that moment, Henrietta entered the restaurant, so Dennis asked her to go with Rachel. While Dennis and Finn watched Italia from a distance, Finn tried to convince him to stop spying on her, but Dennis said it was normal because he was the guardian responsible for her. Then he showed him the boy she had been meeting and angrily said it was obvious the boy was trying to win her affection, but Finn thought it was nice and that she was finally making new friends. After that, the boy took Italia to a jewelry shop, and at that point, Dennis began falling apart from stress, imagining that they were going to buy a wedding ring. As for Finn, he kept trying to calm him down and telling him to relax a little. On the other side, Henrietta and Rachel were shopping together. Rachel noticed that Henrietta was distracted and that something seemed wrong, so she asked her about it. Henrietta said she was thinking about how to repay Dennis's kindness and settle what she owed him. Rachel was surprised and asked how she had no money despite constantly going on missions. Henrietta said she spent almost everything she earned on equipment and magic potions, and most of the time, she actually spent more than she earned. She added that she wanted to find another way to express her gratitude and support for Dennis. Rachel told her that her kind intentions and the fact that she was thinking about him already had great value. At the same time, Finn used magic on Megathon so they could hear what was happening inside the building Italia had entered with the boy. But Dennis was shocked and could not believe his ears when he heard Italia telling the boy that she was very happy to have met him. Suddenly, a thief snatched the bag of an elderly woman, so Dennis ran after him while carrying Finn, and the thief was stunned by his terrifying speed, even though he was not using any magic. The thief jumped onto the roof of a house using wind magic, but Dennis kept chasing him, and at the same time, Finn used his giant hand magic to launch them upward into the air. They managed to get close to the thief, but he used magic and pushed them away, convinced that it was impossible for them to catch him. But Dennis did not stop and kept running after him, and when they saw the thief running toward Henrietta and Rachel, he shouted at them and told them to stop him. Henrietta attacked him with her sword and truly managed to catch him. Dennis praised her for what she had done, and she was extremely happy because she had finally managed to help him. That night, Dennis told the others about Italia's boyfriend situation, but Finn said they were not even sure whether that boy was her boyfriend or not. He said this was the real reason Dennis had been tense and upset lately. Those words relieved Henrietta greatly, while Rachel revealed that Henrietta had thought Dennis intended to ban her from entering the restaurant. Dennis told her that she always looked happy while eating his food, and for that reason, he would never even think about banning her from entering. But even so, he reminded her that she still had to pay the bill she owed. At that moment, Italia arrived and gave Dennis a bracelet as a gift. She revealed that she had saved part of the allowance he had been giving her, and that the boy who worked at the jewelry shop had also helped her make it. At that moment, everyone understood that the boy had not been her boyfriend at all. Henrietta was about to tell Italia that Dennis had thought the opposite, but he threatened that he would ban her from entering the restaurant if she brought it up. Italia asked Dennis to try on the bracelet, so he wore it on his arm. When she saw it on him, she told him that it suited him very well. After that, an elderly butler named Stevens arrived at the restaurant. The moment he saw Italia, he began crying from deep emotion. Henrietta was confused and asked if he had an obsession with little children, but Finn told her not to jump to such strange conclusions. Stevens called Italia by her full name, and this shocked Rachel and Finn because they realized she was from the Workstead family, the strongest and most famous family of mages in the entire kingdom. Stevens revealed that he had come to take her by order of the Court of Justice. Dennis was surprised and asked him why the court was even interested in her. Stevens explained that Italia's late father had a brother named Joseph, and that Joseph had seized her inheritance and expelled her from the family after spreading a rumor that she was not of Workstead blood. But they had recently found her father's will, and the will stated that he had left all his possessions to Italia. The royal government recognized the will as valid, and that was why the court had summoned her to officially confirm that she truly belonged to the Workstead family. Italia refused to go with him at first, but Dennis told her that one day would come when she would have to face this problem herself. After thinking it over, she agreed to go on the condition that Dennis accompany her. While they were preparing to travel, Finn decided to go with them as well. When they saw her in formal clothes, everyone was amazed by her beauty. Italia said she wanted them to finish the matter quickly and return because she never wanted to go back to the royal capital ever again. Dennis reassured her and told her that as long as he was with her, nothing would happen. When they arrived at the royal capital, Finn became extremely excited because he saw a very famous restaurant known for serving the best food in the entire kingdom. Dennis considered entering the restaurant, but then he changed his mind because he was certain the owner would not be happy to see him. After that, they met a man named Sestovich, who was in charge of the case. He told them that the court needed to examine Italia's blood. Stevens took out a needle to draw a blood sample, but Italia became extremely nervous because she was afraid of needles, and as soon as they took the sample, she collapsed from fear. After that, Dennis asked Sestovich to explain the entire situation. He said that Italia's father, whose name was Fomas, used hypnosis magic. It turned out that this magic could only be used by members of the Workstead family. He added that Fomas had been a great person who saved many people, but his brother Joseph had arranged for him and his wife to be killed in order to take control of the fortune and all the family's possessions. Sestovich showed them a magical tool designed to determine blood relations. He placed a drop of Italia's blood with a drop of Fomas's blood, and the tool formed a shape resembling a flower, which meant that she was truly his daughter. Then he repeated the test using her mother's blood, and the result came back matching. At that moment, Sestovich said that their chances of winning the case had become very high. After that, they went to the Royal Court of Justice. There, Joseph mocked Dennis and called him the coward who had been kicked out of the Silver Wing Brigade. But Dennis answered him and said that this case would cost him a tremendous amount of money before it was over. One of Joseph's followers told the judge that Italia was merely Fomas's daughter from his mistress, and therefore did not deserve to lead the family. But Sestovich said that this was exactly the reason the court had convened. After that, they prepared to take a new blood sample from Italia, but the moment she saw the needle, she flinched and became frightened again. Dennis calmed and reassured her until she agreed. They decided to hold a drawing to determine who would operate the magical tool, and the choice fell on Stevens, so he performed the test using the blood of Fomas and Italia. The result confirmed once again that she was truly his daughter, but when they repeated the test using the blood of his wife, Eliza, the test failed. Sestovich felt that something was wrong, so he demanded that the examination be repeated, but Joseph told him there was no point, and that the result would remain the same no matter how many times they repeated it, because Italia really was Fomas's daughter from his mistress. As for the judge, he said that as long as she had been proven to be Fomas's daughter, then at the very least she would inherit his knowledge and teachings, and so the books and references would go to Italia, while the wealth and authority would go to Joseph. But Dennis noticed something strange in Stevens's behavior, so he suddenly grabbed him and discovered that Stevens had used his own blood to falsify the test result. Stevens admitted that he had done it because Joseph had promised to return him to his old position as a personal butler. The judge ordered Dennis to release him immediately, but Dennis was furious because he was certain Joseph had orchestrated everything from the very beginning. Then he showed them the lottery papers they had drawn and revealed that there had never been any special paper inside the box in the first place because it had already been agreed beforehand that Stevens would be the one to perform the test. Joseph ordered the knights to stop Dennis, and Dennis was about to attack them all and destroy the place out of sheer rage. But Finn calmed him down and told him to think about Italia, because if anything bad happened to him, her situation would become far worse. After that, Dennis realized that bringing Italia to court had been the wrong decision from the start. As for Sestovich, he said they should at least take a look at the books she had inherited. So they went to a very old building, but he explained that the place had long since been turned into an abandoned storage space that no one used. Suddenly, Italia fell into a hidden underground secret room. When Finn and Sestovich began inspecting the place, they were shocked by the number of rare books there. Finn was almost out of his mind with joy because he had found an enormous amount of human history and magic gathered in one place right before his eyes. As for Sestovich, he believed they needed experts to evaluate the value of all these books, and he wondered whether Fomas's true goal had been to leave this massive library to Italia. Dennis asked Italia what she intended to do with all this treasure. She said they would take the books to the restaurant so everyone could read them and benefit from them. The next day, Finn met a man named Heath, whose appearance looked very similar to Dennis. But Finn felt that his personality was completely different from Dennis's, despite the strong resemblance between them. After that, we saw the restaurant filled with customers once again. Most of the people there were mages and sages who had come specifically for the rare books Italia had inherited. Everyone was astonished by the value and rarity of the books, but Dennis shouted at them and told them to leave once they finished their food because the restaurant was not a public library. One of the customers said that one of the books contained a cure for his wife's illness, and he asked permission to borrow it for a while. Italia immediately agreed and allowed him to take it. Then the rest of the customers began asking to borrow books as well, but Dennis said that this case was an exception and would not be repeated for everyone. After that, Dennis began using all his cooking skills to keep up with the massive number of orders. Finn was surprised and asked whether this pressure was not far too much for him, but Dennis said that if he did not work with all his strength, he would never be able to finish the orders. Then we return to the past. When Dennis was a small child, he was sitting alone under the rain in the street. Suddenly, he saw a woman named Jane drop her wallet, so he ran after her and returned it to her. Jane thanked him and took him to her restaurant, where she worked as the head chef. She invited him to a meal as a reward, and the moment he started eating, tears began falling from his eyes without him even realizing it, because he had never tasted food this delicious in his life. Jane calmed him down and comforted him. In the present, Dennis lost consciousness from extreme exhaustion. When he woke up, he found everyone standing around him, worried about him. He tried to get out of bed, but they asked him to rest for a while. They revealed that they had temporarily closed the restaurant. They also said that Italia had been afraid he might have a serious illness, but Dennis reassured her and said he was fine. After that, he fell asleep again, so they decided to let him rest. But Italia refused to leave him alone. Finn asked whether they could do anything to help Dennis. Henrietta suggested that they cook him a meal themselves, and sure enough, they went to the kitchen. Finn was surprised when he saw Henrietta wearing full knight armor before starting to cook. Then she took out an enormous piece of meat and said she was going to cook it for Dennis. But Finn noticed that she looked as if she intended to eat it herself. When she grabbed the knife and prepared to cut the meat, Finn immediately stopped her because he felt she was about to cut the entire kitchen, not just the meat. The situation turned into an argument between them. At that moment, Sestovich entered the restaurant. At the same time, Italia was thinking that Dennis had become exhausted because of her since she had made him go with her to the royal capital. But despite feeling guilty, she was happy that he had been by her side the entire time. Then we returned to the past once again. When Jane brought Dennis to the restaurant, the other chefs were annoyed with him because he constantly played pranks on them. They asked her to scold him and treat him more strictly, but Jane said she believed he was not the type to respond to scolding and punishment. After some time, Dennis tried to make fried rice by himself after watching the chefs while they worked. When he served it to one of the customers, he was completely shocked because she said it tasted bad and disgusting. He remained confused, unable to understand what he had done wrong. At that moment, Jane entered and used a special skill while cooking, and suddenly, the dish became extremely delicious. This amazed the customer. Dennis apologized because he had used a strange skill incorrectly while preparing the food, and he started crying out of frustration. But Jane was happy because he had at least understood the importance of using skills properly while cooking, so he asked her how she had known the mistake he made so easily. She told him that it was very obvious to her because she was famous throughout the entire world for her legendary fried rice. She added that one day he could become a great cook just like her. In the present, Sestovich said he had come to read one of the books Italia had inherited, but when he saw Dennis's condition, he became convinced that the priority now was taking care of him. He suggested that they make him a rice dish using magic, and everyone agreed to the idea, but the problem was that no one knew how to use any type of magic suitable for cooking, so they began discussing and arguing over the best method. As for Henrietta, she was completely lost because she did not understand a single word of what they were saying, so she moved away from them a little and left them to continue their discussion. After a period of arguing, they settled on using ghost fire magic together with flame magic to cook the rice. But since the temperature of the two spells was different, they decided to use a pot reinforced with magical crystals to maintain stable heat and distribute it evenly during the cooking process. Sestovich kept thinking about how they would turn the rice into rice porridge, but Rachel said it would be better for them to take a break first. As for Finn, he said his brain was about to burn from thinking too much. At that moment, Polvo arrived and offered to sell them his products at half price because he had learned that Dennis was sick. That was when Henrietta noticed a magical tool designed specifically for cooking rice. Polvo explained to them that it could make okayu very easily and showed them how to use it. At that moment, Finn and the others felt that they had been overcomplicating the matter for no reason, so they decided to buy the magical tool immediately. While they were preparing to cook, Italia came out and said it would be better to add eggs to the meal as well. She began whisking the eggs with professional skill, and this amazed everyone present. Finn said she had learned that move from Dennis. After that, they asked Henrietta if there was any specific food she did not like. She answered with complete seriousness that she could not eat leather shoes. This made everyone look at her in confusion. Finn told her that shoes were not something people ate in the first place, but Henrietta explained that her father had told her long ago that leather shoes were made from animal hides, and therefore they should be edible. That night, Italia served the okayu to Dennis. When he tasted it, he said it was very delicious and asked her if she was the one who cooked it. She said she was only responsible for preparing the eggs, but explained that Polvo was the one who made the okayu itself. Dennis was extremely surprised and could not believe that Polvo had helped her prepare the meal. On another day, Henrietta was walking through the city when she ran into Finn. Finn noticed that she was carrying a very large bag, so she told him she was very excited for the feast they were going to hold. One of the shop owners asked them why they were not at Dennis's restaurant during lunchtime, so they explained to him that the restaurant was closed today because of a special occasion. After that, they arrived at the restaurant. Henrietta began making sure that all the required supplies were there. Before the feast, they decided to go to the public bath to wash up. When they were getting ready to enter the water, Finn was shocked by the amount of muscle Dennis had. Dennis, on the other hand, asked him why his body was so thin. Finn replied that he was a mage and did not need big muscles to fight. On the other side, Rachel was amazed by Henrietta's perfect and well-balanced body, but Henrietta said she thought their bodies were very similar. After they finished bathing, they all gathered for dinner. Dennis asked Henrietta to begin the celebration. She stood up up and gave a very long and formal speech. Dennis interrupted her and said she was being far too stiff. Suddenly, Henrietta began to cry. She told everyone that they had taken care of her and helped her for a long time, but she had finally found a real job as a knight. Everyone was happy for her and congratulated her. She explained that she had thought about it for a long time and realized that she wanted a job where she could help people and protect them. After that, Finn also announced that he had found the new brigade he would be joining. Henrietta said that the two of them had finally started moving forward and achieving their goals, but Finn jokingly replied that their situations were different because at least he had been paying for his own food. Rachel also shared her news and said she would return to her hometown first and spend some time with her family. After that, she would travel to the capital to work as a teacher at the Magic Academy. Dennis was surprised and said she had been offered a teaching position before even graduating in the first place. Then he raised his cup and said they had to celebrate their new beginnings. But Finn felt a little sad because he felt everyone would be going down different paths. At that moment, they offered to delay their plans if he was upset. But Dennis called them crazy and told them that each person was free to do whatever they wanted and that the most important thing was for them to hold on to the things that mattered to them and not let them slip away. After that, he entered the kitchen and began preparing his famous fried rice. Everyone watched him cook in amazement, but suddenly, Polvo appeared without warning and began eating straight from the food. This surprised everyone. Dennis admitted that he did not really remember his name well, but he was happy that at least Italia still remembered him. Polvo tried to convince Italia to join him or work with him, but Dennis immediately struck him on the head. After that, he thanked him for helping them when he was sick and asked him why he had suddenly shown up. Polvo said he had come to invite them to a special feast. Then he took out an extremely rare piece of meat. The moment Dennis saw it, he quickly cut it and began distributing it to everyone. But Polvo complained and said he had intended to serve it to Italia alone. He became jealous when he saw Italia feeding Dennis herself. So Italia offered him a bite as well. And at that moment, he became so happy that he collapsed onto the floor from sheer joy. After that, Finn asked Dennis if he had any connection to the famous black restaurant because the judge in court had called him Dennis Black. Dennis revealed that the head chef who raised him and taught him how to cook had allowed him to use her family name, but he was not even sure anymore whether he wanted to keep that name now because he had left the restaurant after a major fight between them. He added that all of that happened during the period when he had been close to reaching level 90, but when he remembered it now, he understood that Jane had not been discouraging him. Instead, she had been trying to warn him against arrogance and overconfidence. Finn said he had every right to trust himself because he had reached level 99, which was almost the highest level any person could reach. But Dennis explained that when he left the restaurant, he was convinced he would reach level 100 very quickly. And to prove to Jane that he was right, he traveled all around the world. In the end, he joined the Silver Wing Brigade, but despite all that, he was never able to reach level 100. At the same time, two of Dennis's regular female customers were heading to the restaurant, and they were surprised to find it closed that day. Suddenly, two men appeared and violently pushed one of them to the ground. The two girls quickly fought back and struck one of them with a magical arrow. As for the other, he tried to escape, so they used a magic spell to capture him. But suddenly, everyone was shocked when a huge fire broke out. Dennis and the others saw smoke rising from the direction of the restaurant. They ran toward the place as fast as they could. When they arrived, they were shocked to find the restaurant engulfed in flames. The two girls showed them the man responsible for setting the fire. Finn immediately recognized him as a member of the Night Mist Brigade, but they said that the Night Mist Brigade was not the only one behind it. The Workstead family and the Silver Wing Brigade themselves were also after Dennis. After a great effort, Dennis and the others managed to put out the fire, but the restaurant had almost completely turned to ash. This made Henrietta cry bitterly, while Rachel and Finn felt guilty. They believed that what happened was because Dennis had stepped in to help them, and ended up getting into trouble with the Night Mist Brigade because of them. But Dennis rejected that idea and said that none of them were at fault. He said that he himself was the one who had entered into conflict with the Workstead family and the Silver Wing Brigade. Then he shocked everyone by saying that he would simply open a new restaurant in another city. Everyone was stunned by his words, and they said they had to stand together and fight their enemies. But Dennis reminded them that their opponents were the strongest adventurer brigade and the greatest noble family in the entire kingdom, and that their chances of winning were almost non-existent. Finn was extremely surprised by his way of thinking and asked him where his usual personality had gone. Dennis replied that he had finally come back to his senses and was thinking rationally. Then he opened the safe and took all the money inside. Italia asked him if he was sure about his decision, and he said that if they decided to confront them, they would be hunted all the time. There was also no guarantee that everyone would be safe. Then he apologized to Italia because the books she had inherited had burned as well. But she said she did not care about the books themselves, and that what mattered most to her was that the customers were happy and benefited from them. Dennis said he loved this city very much. As for Italia, she said it was far better than the royal capital by many levels, so he reassured her that they would definitely come back to visit everyone once things calmed down. But while they were preparing to leave, Dennis was surprised by the number of people gathered in front of the restaurant. All of them refused to let him leave the city. Finn said that Dennis could never see someone getting hurt and stay silent, but when the problem involved Dennis himself, he completely ignored himself. He added that most of the people there were outcasts or people who had been driven away from other places and that the same thing had happened to Dennis before, but he would not allow Dennis to be driven out or rejected again because all of those people needed him. Then Finn remembered how pathetic he himself had been because he was always advising people to hold on to the important things in their lives. But when his own turn came, he had been ready to give up the most important thing to him. Because of that, he decided to stay in the city. Henrietta suggested that they give their team an official name, so Italia suggested the name Restaurant of Outcasts, and everyone liked the name very much. After that, Finn asked Dennis to say a few words to everyone. Dennis said enthusiastically that they would defeat the villains and win. Finn immediately asked him if he actually had a real plan, but before he could answer, Katie suddenly appeared. Guilt was clearly written all over her face because she had been unable to stop the man who burned down the restaurant, even though she had heard Vigo talking about his plan before carrying it out. Dennis told her that what happened was not her fault. Then he asked her to tell him all of Vigo's movements, but she said she was still the vice leader of the Silver Wing Brigade, and because of that, she could not help him directly. Dennis apologized for asking her to do something so difficult. She was about to leave, but then she suddenly changed her mind and decided to tell him everything she knew. After that, while the group was traveling toward the royal capital, Dennis revealed a shocking piece of information. Jane had reached level 100. This left everyone stunned. Dennis himself began losing his composure while talking about it, because simply reaching level 99 required an exceptionally rare talent. They tried to calm him down, but he refused to settle down. He said that the number of humans who had reached level 100 throughout history was so small that they were considered living legends. That meant Jane had become part of that same legendary rank. But Dennis explained that all of her power was focused on cooking and its skills. Because of that, she was weaker than him in direct combat. Even so, she still had enormous influence and connections inside the royal capital. That was why she was the best person they could ask for help. But the problem was that he was not even sure she would agree to listen to him after what had happened between them. When they reached the capital, Dennis decided to go meet Jane himself. At the same time, he asked the others to begin carrying out the plan. Finn went to one of the stores and asked the receptionist to carry out a certain task for him. She agreed immediately because she thought he was cute and charming. As for Rachel, she asked her group to contact all the mages and sages in the capital and request their help, but her companions were worried because they were not sure the great scholars and mages would agree to listen to them or take part. But Rachel reassured them and said that everything would go well. At the same time, Henrietta met Sestovich and told him everything that had happened. She asked him whether they could build a criminal case based on the criminals they had captured after the restaurant fire, but Sestovich said that using them to reach the Silver Wing Brigade directly would be very difficult. At that moment, Henrietta said they had another plan. On the other side, Polvo was shouting at people and ordering them to work hard. He noticed Italia looking at a magical tool that relied on wind magic, but he told her he would repair it himself because it was broken. After that, the man who had borrowed one of her books arrived. When he returned it, he thanked her warmly because he had managed to save his wife thanks to the information inside it. This made Italia extremely happy. The man asked her if he could repay her kindness in any way. He revealed that he was a mage capable of using most high-level wind magic skills, so they decided to ask him for help repairing the magical tool. At the same time, Dennis arrived at the restaurant Jane used to run, but before opening the door, he remembered the moment he left that place after the fight between them. When he entered, the workers there recognized him immediately and gathered around him with excitement. But he said he had come specifically to meet Jane. A girl named Suzumochi took him to Jane's office, but Dennis was confused and did not know how to start talking to her. Jane looked at him and said the features of his face looked a little better than they used to. She asked him if he had finally found the answer he had been searching for, but he admitted that he still did not know it, and that made him feel that maybe he would never reach level 100. Jane understood that he had not come simply for a visit or because he missed the place, so she asked him for the real reason. He told her that Katie had informed him about an important meeting that would be attended by people with great influence, and that he needed her connections and acquaintances to learn the exact time and place of the meeting. Jane was surprised that he always put other people before himself. She asked him why he sacrificed himself like that, and he answered that he was doing all of this for the people who loved his food and supported him. In the end, she agreed to help him. But she told him that even though she had taught him almost everything, she had not taught him the one thing he truly needed in order to reach level 100. She gave him a small hint about it, but Dennis still did not understand what she meant, so she kept watching him as he left the place. That night, Suzumochi handed Dennis a message from Jane, and written inside it were the exact location and time of the meeting. At that moment, he said that all their preparations were ready. The next day, while Vigo was preparing to leave, Katie asked him where he was going. He said he had important work he needed to finish. He saw the whole thing as a waste of time, but at the same time, he could not ignore it because the goal he aspired to was waiting beyond that step. After that, we return to Vigo's past. We see him as a small child working in the fields all day, while his sick brother sat watching him because he was unable to work. The people around them pitied them because their father had died, and their mother had left them after getting involved with another man. One noble lady would sometimes give Vigo food and ask him to eat it himself instead of giving it to his brother every time. But after she left, Vigo would laugh and say that having his brother with him made it easier to deceive rich people and get food from them. One day they went to the noble lady's house, and she had a dog that kept barking at Vigo non-stop. That night, he decided to take revenge on it. His brother tried to stop him, but Vigo kept striking the dog with the farming axe in a rage. He was angry because the dog was eating better food than they were. The next day, they found the dog dead, and the personal butler found the blood-stained tool that had been used to beat it. But Vigo claimed that he had forgotten it somewhere else, and that someone else had used it. The butler noticed bloodstains on Vigo's brother's shirt, so he asked him whether he was the one who had killed the dog. But suddenly, Vigo kicked the butler with force and revealed that he was the one who had actually killed the dog. The noble lady said he had to be punished for his crime. When he returned home that night, his brother noticed the marks from whipping and beating on his back, so Vigo decided to take revenge and burn the noble lady's entire house to the ground. He was convinced that after destroying all her possessions, she had become an ordinary poor person just like him, but his brother became extremely afraid of him after what he had done. In the end, he ran away from him. From that incident onward, Vigo devoted his entire life to training and gaining strength, until he became strong enough to go to the capital and begin challenging people older and stronger than him. They underestimated him because he was thin, but he defeated them easily, and they could not believe they were no match for him. Eventually, he joined a brigade called Silver Fang, and they were all amazed by his strength because he defeated monsters on his own. The brigade leader asked him why he did not like working with anyone, and Vigo explained that he did not want fighting to become easy. This made the leader understand that his goal was to reach level 100. The leader told him that the brigade was not a place for someone who only wanted to raise his level, and at that moment, a dragon appeared inside a cave. The leader realized they had entered the dragon's territory and thought it would not attack them unless they provoked it, but Vigo struck it with his knife and left the leader to face it alone. The leader died in the battle, and afterward, the remaining members made Vigo their new leader. But in the end, they left him because his methods were harsh, and they did not agree with him, so he formed a new brigade called Silver Wing. In the present, Vigo met Joseph and the others, then closed the curtains so no one could see them. Joseph told him there was no need to be afraid. Vigo told him they had finished dealing with the restaurant where Italia had been, and that nothing would happen to Hooper because they had the highest judge in the kingdom on their side. The judge said their future was guaranteed, but Joseph was planning to rule the entire kingdom from the shadows, and he believed they should thank Dennis because he was the one who had gathered them all in one place. Finn entered the hall disguised as a waiter and said the chef had forgotten a dish. When he served the dish, they discovered it was nothing but fried rice. But the moment Joseph tasted it, he was shocked by how delicious it was and demanded to see the chef so he could employ him. Vigo saw Joseph as a despicable person because he did not use his own magic himself, but instead boasted about stolen power. And at the right time, Vigo intended to get rid of all of them so he could appear as the kingdom's savior. He was planning to rise into the nobility, then even overthrow the king himself, and take control of the kingdom and the neighboring countries. Joseph asked Vigo to taste the rice, and when he did, he discovered that Dennis had made it. Suddenly, Dennis entered the hall and said he had come to punish them for burning down his restaurant. Vigo asked him what his goal was, and told him that any attack on Joseph or the judge could lead him to the death penalty, but Dennis did not care. He said he was truly furious, then began shouting at them, causing them to collapse to the floor in terror. Joseph tried to beg him to leave him alone and offered him anything, so Dennis asked him to bring back Italia's parents and the books that had burned. Joseph asked him to demand something he could actually do instead, but Dennis demanded that he admit in front of everyone that he and the rest of them were the ones who burned down the restaurant. As Dennis shouted, their fear grew even stronger. Vigo understood that Dennis was using terrifying voice, but Joseph could not withstand it and actually confessed to the crime. Finn used his magic to spread the confession throughout the entire city, and everyone heard it. Vigo tried to attack them, but they escaped, and he was shocked when he saw all the people gathered in front of the building, eating and listening to what had happened. He was astonished by why every person connected to magic was there, and why they were so furious. Dennis said that mages were the ones who enforced the law in the country, and therefore, they would be the ones to decide their punishment. Sestovich said the game was over because Joseph had confessed to everything himself. Vigo became enraged and attacked Dennis, saying that he had known from the beginning that Dennis would ruin his plans. He understood that merely expelling him had been a mistake, and that he should have killed him from the start. He covered his sword with lightning magic while Dennis froze his knives, and the battle between them began. Vigo destroyed the ground and hurled rocks at Dennis, but Dennis blocked them with a massive frying pan. Dennis retaliated with fire attacks, but Vigo blocked them with his sword and charged toward him. He nearly struck him, but Dennis managed to stop the attack with difficulty. After that, we returned to the first time Kenny met Dennis and Vigo. They were arguing from the very beginning because Vigo saw him as nothing more than a cook and looked down on him, but Kenny convinced him to let Dennis join the brigade. After that, they entered a dungeon, and everyone was amazed by Vigo as he defeated a powerful monster all by himself. At the same time, Dennis began cooking food for them, but Vigo was impatient and said they had to advance farther because he sensed something stronger deep within the dungeon. Dennis reminded him that they had already completed their mission, but Vigo replied that his goal was to make the Silver Wing Brigade grow bigger and bigger, and for that reason, he could not stop even for a single moment. Dennis called him greedy, but Vigo said he had worked hard and struggled to reach his current position, and that he intended to keep climbing even higher. Dennis did not understand his way of thinking at all and asked him why he wanted to reach level 100, but before he could answer, Dennis was distracted when the food started burning, and he served it to everyone. He was happy that everyone, even Vigo, enjoyed the food. Katie thanked him and said their brigade had become much better because of him, but Vigo still refused to praise him. After that, we see Vigo expelling one of his team members, while Dennis gives him food before he leaves because he could not help him with anything else. Then Vigo apologized to a nobleman because he had failed a mission, but in his heart, he said he had wished one of them had died so it would become a great story. Vigo became angry and intended to attack the nobleman, but Dennis stopped him. After that, they went to a restaurant, and Vigo asked Dennis if he was not angered by the way nobles looked down on them, even though they had the power to make them kneel before them. But Dennis was focused on his food and told him that there were some things that could not be changed. In the present, the battle continues, and Vigo breaks Dennis's knife using the destruction skill, but Dennis immediately repairs it. Vigo understands that any strike could kill him, so he begins raising his senses to the absolute limit, but he cannot understand why Dennis has such passion when he has never once entered a battle knowing he would lose. He describes him as a naive, lucky young man who was taken in without deserving it. Then he starts throwing knives at him, while Dennis dodges and creates giant frying pans in an attempt to trap him, but Vigo breaks through them and attacks him with his sword, while Dennis blocks the attack with a broken frying pan. Everyone can see that Vigo is incredibly strong, but Dennis is still able to keep up with him, and Italia is worried about him. Vigo throws Dennis far away, and at that moment, Dennis remembers why he wanted to reach level 100. He remembers Jane's words to him, telling him that he would never reach it because he did everything half-heartedly, so he asks himself why he ever chose the path of cooking in the first place. Suddenly, he realized that all this time he had been chasing the same feeling he experienced the very first time he ate the fried rice that Jin had made. He wanted to become someone who could serve food like that as well, so he could give strength and happiness to people struggling through their lives. He was on the verge of losing consciousness, but then he heard his friends calling out to him. He felt regret for the situation he had dragged them into because of him. Vigo covered his sword with lightning and prepared to finish him off, but then Dennis remembered Jin's words, that the final piece needed to reach level 100 existed within his own heart. At that moment, he finally understood the true meaning. The instant he blocked Vigo's attack, his body began to glow. Vigo was blown backward, and light engulfed the entire area. His friends had no idea what was happening. Dennis declared that delicious food alone was not enough. He also had to become strong enough to protect the smiles of the people around him, and for that reason, he decided to become the strongest chef in the world. Vigo could not understand what was happening, but he realized that Dennis was ascending to level 100. He tried to attack him again, but Dennis effortlessly avoided every single strike. Dennis leaped into the air and struck him with tremendous force. Vigo tried to defend himself, but his feet sank deep into the ground. Then Dennis activated his new skill and told him that he was banned from his restaurant. A burst of light exploded and slammed Vigo into the ground. Vigo could not believe he had lost. He tried to stand, only to discover that he could no longer move his body. Finn explained that Dennis had used his unique skill after reaching level 100. Vigo refused to accept that this ending was real and kept trying to get back up, but in the end, Dennis finished the battle. Vigo was completely defeated. Dennis was about to collapse from exhaustion, but his friends caught him. He asked them to make him some fried rice. In the end, Italia returned his bracelet to him. He put it on and thanked her for keeping it safe. After that, Katie went to one of the family's restaurants and told Jin that she had come to help Dennis if she ever felt he was in danger. Jin replied that she should have stepped in, but Katie explained that it was the first time she had ever seen Vigo fight so seriously. It made her realize that if she had intervened at the wrong moment, she might have died. Katie then asked how Dennis had managed to reach level 100. Jin answered that he had discovered the true reason for his existence in this world. She added that it was not simply about existing techniques or skills, it was about finding something a person could do that no one before them had ever accomplished. Katie said she already knew Jin was different from everyone else, so she had not expected a straightforward answer. Even so, she still did not understand what Jin meant. Jin explained that the fact that she and Dennis lived during the same era was merely a coincidence, but each of them had chosen a different path. She chose to become the greatest cook, while he chose to become the strongest chef in order to protect the smiles of his friends. Katie felt that Dennis's level 100 skill did not suit a chef at all, but Jin replied that it was because he was an idiot, making them both laugh. At the same time, Heath was having lunch. He asked a girl named Fiorenza whether she wanted to eat with him, but she refused and said that her job was to protect him. She informed him that Vigo and Joseph had been defeated, but he showed no concern and continued offering her food. She had assumed that everything Vigo did had been part of Heath's plan, but Heath said he would never rely on someone like that and was not worried about Vigo's defeat. She asked whether he had expected Dennis to be unable to defeat Vigo, but Heath replied that he had never doubted Dennis because he was his younger brother. Meanwhile, Finn and the others went to visit Dennis. Dennis told them to keep their voices down because he was still recovering, but the moment he shouted at them, they realized he was already feeling much better. They showed him the blueprint for the new restaurant and explained that Polvo had brought in a construction company to rebuild it. That made Dennis very happy. When he examined the blueprint, he noticed that the design was different, and they explained that they had made a few modifications. He was shocked when he saw a massive bath area inside the restaurant. Italia insisted that it was not a problem. They had also added a huge fish tank in the center of the building, and Henrietta explained that the idea came from a luxurious restaurant she had once seen. She said they could serve fresh fish that way, but Dennis did not approve of the idea. He also noticed that part of the walls was missing. Finn explained that they wanted the restaurant to have a modern look by replacing the front walls with glass, but Dennis rejected that idea as well. They also discovered that there was a basement underneath the building. Rachel suggested using it as employee housing so the staff could work all the time, but Dennis was horrified by the idea of exploiting workers. Finn later visited Cynthia's grave and mentioned that most of the people connected to Joseph were currently being arrested, while the position of the Workstead family remained vacant, but Italia had no intention of taking it. Meanwhile, Sistovich and the others continued searching for a solution, while researchers worked to restore the bird books that had been destroyed. The restaurant was rebuilt and prepared for its grand reopening, and everyone took the day off so they could come and see it. Finn remembered Dennis's words that even when everything seems completely over, someone will always rise again. And if a person cannot stand on their own, someone else can help them get back up. He wondered whether he would be able to fulfill his promise and become a powerful mage, but he knew the answer would only come if he continued walking his path. At the same time, Dennis and Italia were out shopping for supplies for the restaurant. On the way back, Italia became distracted by a bird and fell slightly behind them, but she was much calmer now and no longer frightened like she used to be. Dennis hung up the restaurant signboard, but he did not like how it looked. The others insisted that it was excellent. Finn arrived and was asked for his opinion, and he agreed that it looked good as well. Dennis tried to tell them about the book he had read, but they quickly dragged him inside. He was surprised to find that everything looked just like the old restaurant, and that upset Italia because she had wanted the huge bath area. Dennis told her to help him. Then he personally began serving food to everyone. He thanked them because they were the reason he had managed to hold on to the things that truly mattered in his life. And this is where the story comes to an end, my dear viewers. We hope you enjoyed it and had a wonderful time watching. If you would like to see a second season, let me know in the comments. Before you close the video, don't forget to leave a like to support us, subscribe to follow more episodes, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any new anime recaps on the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you again in future episodes. Goodbye.